Okay, here's our first lesson of the year. We're starting off with ratios and how to talk about ratios, how to say them, and how to write them. So we have this simple question right here. It says, Johnny has 3 apples and Emily has 2 oranges. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to learn how to first write the ratios. So there's 3 ways to write a ratio. We have way number 1, a fraction. We have way number 2 using colon form. Now that's the colon that we use in literature, so it's the 2 dots. And then our third way is going to be word form. So we have word form. And that is going to look exactly how it sounds. Let's back up a little bit here so we can see everything. There we go. Okay, so it says Johnny has 3 apples and 2 oranges. So starting off over here in fraction form, we're just going to be comparing Johnny to Emily. So we're talking about 3 apples to 2 oranges. And that's fraction form. Right there. Alright. Now colon form, like I said before, it's just the literature term. We're using a colon. So it's 3 apples, and then we use the colon, just the 2 dots, 2 oranges. And finally, word form. I'll come over here, and again, it's just, we can write the number 3, the word 2, and then the number 2. Alright, and it's as simple as that. And just talking about them each way, it's for fraction form, we're talking about 3, the fraction bar is the word 2, the number 2, 3, 2, the number 2, and then 3, 2, the number 2 again. Alright, so that's just talking about ratios. How do we write them, the 3 different ways, and how do we say them? Alright, 3, 2, 2. Ratios, once again, are comparing 2 different items. Alright, in this case, 3 apples to 2 oranges. Now we come down here to a little bit more of a problem. So it says for every 3 apples Johnny has, Emily has 2 oranges. Okay, so this is a little different now. This isn't just saying Johnny, it's not a statement. It's saying more that for every 3 apples Johnny has, Emily has 2 oranges. Alright, so we could kind of modify this and go a little bit farther than that. So this is where we get into the part of equivalent ratios. So an equivalent ratio is the same thing as an equivalent fraction, which we learned in 5th grade. Alright, so if we're talking about an equivalent fraction here, we talked about, you know, if 1 over 2, let's zoom in here, we have the number 1/2, that's equal to 2 over 4, and that's equal to 3 over 6, and so on. Okay, we learned that from 5th grade, but now we're talking about equivalent ratios. So we have 3 apples to 2 oranges. One of our tools that we use to solve this is called a ratio table. So it's nothing new, we're just writing the ratio, but we're putting it into a table, something that makes it kind of organize everything and it makes it look nice. So the 2 things we're comparing, first apples, then oranges. So I'm just going to compare it in that order. So we're going to have apples, and my suggestion, always use your labels. Alright, so we have apples on top, and we're going to have oranges on bottom. Probably should have put oranges in the color orange. So now we're just going to make a nice table. Alright, just make a nice box. Alright, close that box, and we're going to split it up. Apples on top, oranges on bottom. Okay, and it says that we start off with 3 apples and 2 oranges. Okay? Well, what if we had 6 apples. What if Johnny had 6 apples over here? All right. Well, the question now is, how many oranges is Emily going to have? Because the question, for every 3 apples Johnny has, Emily has 2 oranges. Okay? Well, we need to figure out, how do I get from 3 up to 6? Now, in this problem, and in all ratio problems, we're eliminating addition and subtraction. There's no addition and subtraction. We're only dealing with multiplication and division. So, if I'm going up from 3 up to 6, we're going to be multiplying. And I have to ask myself, okay, how do I get 3 times what equals 6? Well, 3 times 2 equals 6. Now, this is just kind of the golden rule. What I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom. All right. So if I multiply by 2 on top, I have to multiply by 2 on the bottom. And I get 2 times 2 is going to be 4. So I end up with, if Johnny has 6 apples, Emily has 4 apples. Now, let's go a little bit farther. What if we said that we want to figure out if Emily, so we're going to be on the bottom now, what if Emily has, we'll say, 12? What if Emily has 12 oranges? How many apples is Johnny going to have? Well, we have to ask ourselves the same thing. How do I get up to 12? And some of the kids are like, well, let's see, I could go to 4 to 12, or I could use 2 to 12. And they're like, Mr. Capture, does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. I can choose either one. So we're going to go from 4 up to 12. And again, we're only multiplying here. So I ask myself, how do I get from 4 up to 12? Well, let's see, 4 times 3 is 12. The golden rule again, multiplied on the top, on the bottom, I have to multiply on the top by the same number, 3, 3. 6 times 3 then gives me 18. And I write it in that box. And so on. So I keep on going like this for all of my numbers. The final thing, I could, maybe what if I wanted to find out 1? How many apples would Johnny have if Emily has 1 orange? Okay, well this is kind of a predicament now because, let's see, each time we were going up and we were multiplying, but now we have 1. I'm like, well, how do I get down to 1? So, if I'm going down, I want to divide. Let's see, let's use this color here. So, I could use 12, I could use 4, or I could use 2 to get down to 1. Any of the numbers, it's going to get me the same answer each time. Let's go ahead and just use 2 because it's a small number. All right. I ask myself, how do I get from 2 down to 1? Well, if I'm going down in numbers, it's going to be a division problem. And I have to ask myself, 2 divided by what equals 1? Well, anything divided by itself is 1. So 2 divided by 2 equals 1. Once again, if I divide on the bottom, I have to divide on top. And we're going to go around these other numbers here. Draw my arrow. And I divide by 2. 3 divided by 2. Now, we have to think about this. 3 divided by 2. Okay, it's going to be a decimal because 2 doesn't go into 3 evenly. It's going to end up being 1.5 or 1 1/2. So Johnny has 1 apple and he has half of another apple. Maybe he got hungry or something. So that is equivalent fraction, or equivalent ratios, which is exactly the same as equivalent fractions. However, we're putting it in a nice table. It organizes our data.